The topic I chose to research was violence against Native American women on reservations. My inspiration behind choosing this topic stemmed from the recent discussion in media regarding missing and murdered Indigenous women, along with the extreme lack of investigation surrounding these numbers. I had been aware of this issue, but had not been aware of the true amount of violence these women face. One project that I found very interesting was the red dress display, which I'll discuss more in the next slide. So while I was somewhat aware of this issue, I became more interested in learning more after seeing many depictions of sexual assault against Native American women in literature written by Native authors. These are images of the red dress display, which I briefly mentioned on the last slide. To go more in depth, this was a display created by Native artist Jamie Black and is located outside of the Smithsonian Museum. There are 35 red dresses, each a different size and style to represent the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women who disappear each year with little justice or recognition. I found this extremely interesting and saddening, and it played a role in why I chose this topic. One novel I read this semester in my Native American literature class is There by Native author Tommy Orange. In this novel, Tommy Orange creates a character of Cheyenne descent named Jacquie Red Feather, who faces sexual assault during the Native American occupation of Alcatraz. On page 56, Jacquie is talking to her younger sister Opal about what happened to her, and she tells her, "I told him not to, then he did. I told him to stop." So this scene and Jacquie's assault have many similarities to the issues that Native women are currently facing on reservations. One similarity is location. Jacquie was a part of the Native American occupation, which was a time where Native Americans were bonding together in a show of strength in order to obtain their land and rights, yet all Jacquie received was violence and trauma. This similarly reflects many women's experiences on reservations. Jacquie also never got justice, and her attacker was never incriminated. Her trauma she faced on Alcatraz not only impacted the rest of her life, but also those of her daughter and her grandsons. Orange's depiction of a lack of justice for Native women, as well as the consequences of intergenerational trauma, are very accurate when compared to modern issues. Native American women face extreme amounts of violence on reservations, more so than any other people in the U.S. Almost every statistic demonstrates staggering and scarily high numbers that report sexual assault and violence. Some of these statistics include 4 in 5 Native women experiencing violence, 1 in 2 Native women are victims of sexual violence, 39% of Native women experience domestic abuse, 34% of Native women are victims of rape. In some reservations, Native American women are more than 10 times likely to be murdered than the national average, and Native American children who see this violence experience PTSD 3 times higher than the nation. This image depicts some of the statistics I just mentioned on the last slide, but I thought that the chart did a good job of visualizing the issue and showing the large numbers of women on reservations who are suffering. The reason it is so difficult for Native women to get justice is a discrepancy between the tribal and the U.S. justice systems, and many Native women are really struggling to receive justice because of this. Until very recently, Indian nations were not allowed under U.S. law to prosecute non-Indians. This is a big issue because non-Indians commit 96% of sexual violence against Native women, and it makes the incriminations of abusers very difficult. The U.S. government wants to give reservations tribal freedom over their justice and act more as a support, but then fails to support the thousands of women facing violence on tribal lands. The U.S. policy of not allowing Native tribal justice system to incriminate non-Indians, which I believe is either ended or in the process of being ended, but it puts many Native women at risk because non-Indians make up 76% of population on reservation lands. Due to this large number of non-Indians on these lands, many Indigenous women marry non-Indians. However, this then makes them almost immune to being prosecuted and incriminated for violence. How is it fair to Native women who are members of their tribe and should be able to feel safe on their reservations, yet the people that live around them can commit violence and sexual assault with almost no consequences? It makes every day extremely fearful and perpetuates violence. The U.S. government and justice system plays a large role in the lack of prosecution. U.S. attorneys declined 67% of cases brought by Native Americans regarding sexual abuse and violence, which demonstrates the disturbing amount of racism and discrimination that is present in the American criminal justice system. Along with lack of prosecution, there is little law enforcement on reservations, which leads to many sexual assaults not even being investigated. The lack of protection of Native American women also violates beliefs clearly outlined in popular American documents, such as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Both clearly state that a human right should be that all should be granted freedom from violence, yet the U.S. does little to help all the suffering Native women. And as a result of this, these criminals act with almost impunity on reservations. It makes Native women's lives and rights be in constant danger, and it allows a cycle of violence on reservations to continue. I've listed some organizations which are working to help Native women, such as the Indian Law Resource Center, the National Congress for American Indians Task Force on Violence Against Women, the Clan Star Incorporated, National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, and also, if you're interested in learning more, please examine my sources listed in my Works Cited page. Thank you.